Jake Paul. The braggadocious social media star is now 3-0 as a professional boxer, much to many people's surprise. With 2 viral knockouts, Jake is gaining steam fast, but what is next for the problem child? For those of you who are new to Jake Paul's short boxing career, it came after an amateur boxing match against Deji Olatunji at cruiserweight. Both men had just over 6 months to prepare, putting on a good white-collar bout. Although Jake was yet to find that knockout power, he managed to get a 5th round TKO after Deji's corner threw in the towel after he didn't respond to a flurry of punches from Jake. Jake Paul made it clear this wasn't the end of his boxing endeavours and began looking for a new opponent. As the YouTube boxing scene continued to grow, English fans helped orchestrate a matchup between Jake Paul and Anisam Gibb, who was one of KSI's training partners. Gibb had competed in other YouTube boxing events, amassing an amateur record of 2-0. The matchup was scheduled as the co-main event to Demetrius Andrade and Luke Keeler, who were fighting for the WBO middleweight title. 7-figure Gibber was disqualified in bizarre fashion after failing to meet the 3 knockdown rule. Not so much to do with Jake's power, but more to do with his bizarre bobbing, off-balance fighting style. After tasting another win, Jake Paul threw himself further into the boxing world, this time looking for a step up in competition. After a few names were thrown around, Paul secured a huge position on the main card of Mike Tyson's return to boxing against former NBA point guard Nate Robinson. People wondered how Nate's natural athletic ability would stack up against Jake's 2 years of boxing experience. It was clear Robinson was new to the sport as he rushed in awkwardly, landing some good shots. To Jake's credit, he stayed composed and fought well off the back foot, landing a huge right hook in the second round, knocking out Nate Robinson in devastating fashion. It was at this point that Jake started to grab the attention of the combat sports world, insulting Dana White and calling out Conor McGregor. The match was a long shot, but a variety of boxers, MMA fighters, and general sports enthusiasts began to talk about Jake Paul proving he can move the needle. As different names began to circulate the headlines as a future opponent for Jake Paul, a contract was agreed with Ben Askren, the former Bellator, One Championship, and UFC welterweight contender. Now, although Ben Askren has a fantastic resume in the world of combat sports, his boxing is notoriously bad, and it was pretty split on who people thought would win going into this fight. The 2 men secured themselves a main event, with Demetrius Andrade now fighting as the co-main, proving Jake's ability to draw the eyes. Many wanted Askren to win, but coming off a hip replacement, the 36-year-old former Olympian was no match for Jake's youth, losing by brutal knockout in the first round. As for his next opponent, expect a call out from Jake Paul sometime in the next week, but until then, here are some of the frontrunners. The first, and potentially the most likely in my opinion, is Dillon Danis. Danis and Paul have been rumoured to fight for a while, with the 2 men having multiple back and forths on social media. Danis has a similar background to Ben Askren, being a fantastic grappler with very limited striking. A big factor in this fight coming together is Dillon Danis being one of Conor McGregor's training partners, bringing Jake Paul closer to the Irish superstar. With Danis not being a natural cruiserweight and lacking that knockout power, Jake Paul would likely come into this fight as the clear favourite. Jake Paul has called out 3 MMA fighters since fighting Ben Askren: Dustin Poirier, Nate Diaz, and Daniel Cormier. None of these fighters are going to end up across the ring from Jake Paul anytime soon, with Diaz and Poirier right in the thick of their respective divisions and Daniel Cormier well and truly retired. 2 boxers who are yet to really prove themselves have been linked with Jake Paul and could serve as a natural step up in competition for the arrogant YouTuber. The first is Joe Fournier, a 38-year-old entrepreneur who just fought on Jake Paul's undercard. Fournier came to boxing at the age of 34 and since then has had 9 fights, winning all by knockout. That being said, he is yet to face a truly competitive opponent. The other is Tommy Fury, the younger brother of heavyweight world champion Tyson Fury. Tommy became a social media star after going on the English TV series Love Island. The 5-0 boxer is slowly climbing the rankings, and a fight against Jake Paul could slingshot his career. In my opinion, this is the kind of test I would like to see Jake Paul step up against a true up-and-coming boxer. finally is one of England's original content creators, KSI, who beat Jake Paul's older brother Logan Paul in a professional boxing match back in 2019 and helped kick off this whole YouTube boxing ordeal. Although both men have serious power and are a pretty similar size, Jake Paul's focus on boxing in recent years probably makes him the clear favourite in this fight. If I was KSI, I'm avoiding this one. As much as I hate to admit it, Jake Paul has some real natural ability with boxing, but more than that, he wants to learn. Although I think it's important to note that Jake hasn't faced a true cruiserweight or even someone of his ability, if Jake can continue to gradually increase the ability of his opponents, he could become a solid prize fighter. That being said, most professional boxers will spend years grinding it out in the amateurs before even turning to professional boxing, and no amount of time can make up for that experience. So, Jake Paul is never getting close to anyone's world title. But how far can he go? Let me know your opinion in the comments below. Otherwise, go follow my Twitter at Christian Lamar. And yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. Peace.
Nothing funny about what's happening with Nate Robinson, but Snoop Dogg is singing the hymns. He's trying to get
night,
That's it! Mamma Mia, the problem child proving to be a big problem. Nate Robinson.
Goodness.